There comes a moment when a person makes a choice so radical, so misunderstood, that it feels as if they've stepped out of the current everyone else is being swept away by. It's not about fear. It's not about repression. It's not about religion or trauma or running away from life. It's about a conscious, deliberate, and deeply personal decision to live without sex. And before you imagine monks, priests, or cloistered nuns, understand this. This path goes far beyond religious walls. It belongs to the rare few who hear an inner voice so clear that ignoring it would be like silencing their own heartbeat. We call them the chosen ones. Not because they are superior, untouchable, or living in some mystical mountain, but because, at some point, life itself seemed to choose them. Through an inner whisper, through a quiet but unshakable knowing, through a pull toward a road most people would never dare to walk. This journey is not about losing something. It's about discovering something the vast majority will never even glimpse. Because here's the truth. When the sexual current that drives the human race is no longer being spent outward, it doesn't just vanish, it transforms. It rewires the mind, it alters the body, it changes the very way a person experiences reality. But that transformation does not happen overnight, nor without challenge. In the beginning, it's a battle, not with others, but with the self. Desire knocks at the door, old habits pull at the mind. The body remembers the rush of touch and the chemical flood of pleasure. And yet, something deeper begins to take root. The question is, what really happens to the mind and body when a chosen one lives months, years, even decades without sex? Do they weaken, or do they awaken a force hidden within all of us? In this journey, we'll go beyond the myths. We'll break down the mental, physical, and even spiritual shifts that happen when the sexual impulse is transformed instead of satisfied. And you may just discover that this path speaks to you more than you ever expected. Before we dive in, I want to make a pact with you. If you feel this message stirring something inside you, leave the number 99 in the comments right now. It's our silent signal, a way to know who among us is willing to look deeper. And now, let's begin. Because in the stillness where desire once ruled, a new kind of power is waiting to be born. To understand this journey, we first need to understand them, the ones we call the chosen ones. The name alone might conjure images of prophets, enlightened masters, or people touched by some divine finger. But the truth is far simpler and far more mysterious. A chosen one is not born with a glowing mark on their forehead. They are not selected in a grand ceremony. They are chosen in a moment so quiet, so intimate, that no one else may even notice it happened. Sometimes it is a whisper in the stillness, a feeling that life is calling them in a different direction. Sometimes it is the echo of a decision, made in the depths of their own heart. A decision to stop following the rhythm the world insists is normal. And other times, it is born in the fire of a personal awakening, a realization that their energy, their very life force, was meant for something far greater than fleeting pleasure. These individuals are not always monks, mystics, or hermits. Some have never stepped foot inside a temple. They live among us, working, creating, serving, yet quietly walking a road that very few would ever choose. What makes them different is not the absence of desire. It is their mastery of it. They have seen through the illusion that every impulse must be obeyed, every urge satisfied. Instead, they understand that the very force that drives human intimacy can be redirected toward art, toward service, toward creation, toward the fulfillment of a deeper mission. And this redirection changes everything. It transforms the body from a vessel of constant seeking into a reservoir of strength. It clears the mind from the restless chase for validation or excitement. It allows them to experience connection, not as a fleeting high, but as a sustained presence. Some come from ancient traditions: yoga, tantra, Buddhism, mystical Christianity, Sufi devotion. Others have no religion at all, yet they stumble upon the same truth in the solitude of their own experience. They are not loud about it. They are not seeking applause. They live in a quiet power, invisible to most but undeniable to those who truly look. And perhaps the most surprising thing, this path, though rare, is not closed to you. The door stands open. The only question is whether you are willing to step through it. Because once you do, the way you see yourself, your body, your desires, and your very purpose will never be the same again. The mind of a chosen one is not transformed in a single day. At first it resists, fiercely. For years, maybe decades, it has been trained to seek constant stimulation, to anticipate a touch, to daydream about encounters, to carry, just beneath the surface, a hum of restless longing that feels almost natural. When a person chooses to live without sex, that hum doesn't simply fade away overnight. In the beginning, it can grow louder. The mind searches for the old patterns, like a hand reaching for a light switch in a dark room, only to find the wall empty. Memories surface, fantasies visit uninvited, and in those early months, the absence can feel like an ache. But something begins to happen, slowly, invisibly. The mental noise, that background static of craving and distraction, starts to thin out. It's as if a dozen open tabs in the browser of your mind are finally closing one by one. Thoughts move with more clarity. Focus sharpens. Moments of genuine presence begin to appear, not the forced stillness of meditation, but a natural, effortless awareness of now. The chosen one discovers that desire, when not constantly fed, doesn't starve, it transforms. It condenses into a pure current of mental energy. Instead of scattering attention outward, it begins to flow inward, powering the inner life like a hidden generator. And with that shift comes peace. Not the fragile peace that crumbles at the first distraction, but a deep, quiet stability. The mind stops racing toward what's next and starts resting in what is. Of course, this process is not without its shadows. In the absence of the familiar escape, unresolved emotions surface. Old wounds, unhealed grief, insecurities once buried under passion, all rise to the surface demanding attention. This is the point where many turn back, convinced that the discomfort means they are doing it wrong. But the truth is, this is the threshold. Because when a person can face their shadows without running to the comfort of distraction, they step into a realm of self-mastery very few ever know. In that realm, the mind becomes an ally instead of an adversary. Thoughts obey the will, focus deepens, creativity blossoms, and the chosen one learns a truth the world rarely teaches. Freedom is not the ability to follow every desire. Freedom is the ability to choose which desires are worthy of you. When the body no longer spends its energy on sexual release, it does not simply switch off that part of itself. Instead, it begins a remarkable process of adaptation, one that science is only starting to understand, but ancient traditions spoke of for centuries. In the first days or weeks, changes can be intense. Testosterone levels, especially in men, may spike temporarily, as if the body is making one last attempt to awaken the old habit. The nervous system may hum with restlessness. Tension can build in the muscles, the heartbeat quickens at the smallest stimulus, and the body feels almost like it's holding its breath. But then, something shifts. The body learns. It redirects that current of vitality away from reproduction and into other systems. Instead of pouring energy into fleeting moments of pleasure, it begins to strengthen the core. Muscles feel more alive. Posture becomes more upright, as if the spine itself is aware of carrying more power. Breathing deepens, feeding every cell, with a steadier flow of oxygen. In Taoist philosophy, this energy is called Jing, the essential life force that is slowly depleted through frequent release. When conserved, Jing is said to nourish the organs, strengthen the immune system, sharpen the mind, and even extend longevity. While modern science might use different terms, it's beginning to find similar patterns: increased physical stamina, better hormonal balance, and improved recovery from stress. And there's another change, one harder to measure, but impossible to ignore: magnetism. Not the kind that seduces through the body, but the kind that radiates from it. The eyes hold their gaze longer. The voice carries a calm authority. People may not know why they turn to look, but they feel something. An aliveness that doesn't burn out as quickly as ordinary excitement. Of course, this transformation isn't guaranteed just by avoiding sex. If desire is only repressed, the body can suffer. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises, sleep is disrupted, tension turns into discomfort or even pain. But when the energy is channeled through movement, breathwork, creative expression, the body doesn't just survive, it thrives. That's why many of the chosen ones speak of walking through life with a quiet strength, as if their very presence was their shield. And if you want to keep exploring exactly how this inner power is cultivated and learn the deeper layers of what living without sex can unlock, make sure you subscribe right now. This is not just another channel. It's a journey into one of the most hidden, misunderstood, and life-changing paths you'll ever hear about. You don't want to miss what comes next. Every great spiritual tradition has spoken in its own language of a hidden fire within the human being, a force that can destroy or transform, depending on how it is used. Most people let that fire burn outward, seeking touch, release, and the fleeting ecstasy of the senses. But the chosen ones, they learn to turn that fire inward. In yoga, this force is known as Kundalini, a coiled energy said to rest at the base of the spine, waiting for the moment of awakening. When the sexual impulse is no longer spent on physical release, this energy begins to rise, traveling through invisible channels, activating centers of awareness, the chakras, and flooding the being with a new kind of vitality. In those moments, the body may shiver with spontaneous waves, the mind may be struck by sudden visions, and the heart may open as if the universe itself were breathing through it. In Taoist practice, this is called transmutation, the art of refining sexual essence into pure life force and then into spiritual light. They teach that what begins as physical substance can, through discipline and intention, be transformed into a subtle energy that nourishes the brain, strengthens the spirit, and deepens connection with the divine. And in mystical Christianity, in Sufism, in the silence of desert hermits and the chants of Tibetan monks, the same truth is whispered. When desire is offered back to the source, it becomes devotion. When passion is lifted above the body, it becomes prayer. But this awakening does not come to everyone who abstains. It is not a mechanical result of not doing. It is the fruit of conscious choice, of daily discipline, of meeting the raw force of desire without fear and without surrendering to it. The chosen one learns to feel the energy without rushing, to discharge it, to breathe it upward, to let it flood the heart, to let it inspire creation, healing, and acts of service. And slowly, something extraordinary happens. The line between body and spirit begins to blur. Pleasure is no longer bound to touch. Joy no longer depends on circumstance. A person can sit alone in silence and feel as if they are overflowing with life. This is why, throughout history, artists, saints, inventors, and mystics have turned to periods of abstinence, not because they despise sex, but because they had tasted this power and knew it was the key to something greater. It is here, in this alchemy of flesh and spirit, that the chosen one begins to walk not just in self-control, but in a quiet, luminous authority. They no longer chase the world, they carry the world within them. There is a point in this journey where the path becomes treacherous, not because of outside forces, but because of what happens inside. It's the moment when desire, no longer given its usual outlet, begins to rise with a force that feels almost unbearable. The untrained mind mistakes this pressure as a sign of failure. The untrained heart interprets it as proof that the path is impossible. And so, many retreat, not because they lacked sincerity, but because they mistook repression for transformation. Repression is like locking fire inside a sealed box. At first it seems under control, silent, contained, even defeated. But inside, the heat builds. It searches for cracks. It warps the very container meant to hold it. And one day, it explodes, often in ways more destructive than before. This is the tragedy of those who try to kill desire through guilt, fear, or sheer force of will. The body does not forget its nature. The mind does not erase its instincts. If you make desire your enemy, it will fight you until one of you breaks. The chosen ones who endure understand a different truth. Desire is not to be feared, shamed, or exiled. It is to be transmuted. Transmutation means meeting desire without flinching, looking it in the eyes and saying, "I see you, I feel you, but you serve me now." It means taking the very energy that once sought only pleasure and directing it toward creation, focus, and purpose. This is not an overnight mastery, it's a daily practice. At first, the old patterns scream for attention, but each time the chosen one redirects that current through breath, through movement, through prayer or art, the fire grows cleaner, steadier, and less volatile. Those who fail to understand this distinction often fall into cycles of suppression and relapse, guilt and self-condemnation. Those who embrace it step into a deeper kind of freedom, where desire is no longer a master to be obeyed, nor a beast to be caged, but a raw power that can be shaped into something holy. Because in the end, repression makes you smaller. Transmutation makes you greater. Even when the body adapts and the conscious mind accepts the path, there remains one place where no vow, no discipline, and no self-control can fully silence desire: the unconscious. The unconscious speaks in images, symbols, and sensations, most vividly in dreams. For the chosen ones, it is here that the old current often reappears, not as a betrayal of their choice, but as a messenger. Over time, many notice something peculiar. Their dreams become more vivid, more charged, sometimes unmistakably erotic. Scenes and faces may appear without warning, weaving into surreal landscapes that stir the same sensations once felt in waking life. Some even experience physical reactions during sleep: shivers, a racing heartbeat, or, in men, nocturnal emissions. 2. The untrained heart. This can feel like failure, like the unconscious is dragging them back to what they've tried to leave behind. But the deeper truth is that the unconscious is not trying to undo the work. It is trying to integrate it. Desire that is not expressed physically must still move. If it is not channeled in waking life, it will often find symbolic expression in dreams. Far from being a weakness, this is part of the cleansing process, the psyche's way of releasing pressure and reorganizing energy. Ancient traditions understood this well. In the Tantra, erotic dreams were seen as manifestations of Shakti, the creative force, working its way upward, purifying the body's energetic centers. In Tibetan Buddhism, monks were taught to remain aware even in lucid dreams, observing these images without attachment, using them as training for deeper mastery. And in Christian mysticism, saints wrote of their night visions as spiritual trials, invitations to reaffirm their devotion. The chosen ones who embrace this wisdom stop fearing these dreams. Some keep journals, recording recurring symbols, patterns, and emotions. Others simply let them pass like clouds, knowing that each dream is a step toward integration, because the goal is not to erase desire from the unconscious. That would be to erase a part of the self. The goal is to make peace with it, to let it become an ally rather than a hidden enemy. In time, the dreams change. They become less about raw lust and more about connection, creation, and spiritual union. The unconscious, once restless, begins to mirror the stillness of the conscious mind, and in that harmony between what is awake and what is dreaming, the chosen one walks with a power that no shadow can take away. The energy of a chosen one is unlike the energy most people know. It is not the restless buzz that comes from caffeine, adrenaline, or the chase of constant stimulation. It is not the intoxicating spark of fleeting attraction. It is deeper, heavier, more enduring. When sexual energy is no longer spent outward in moments of release, it doesn't die, it condenses. It settles into the body like a dense, glowing core. It is quiet, but immovable. It is not always visible to the eye, but it can be felt in the air around them. People may notice it without understanding why. The chosen one enters a room and the item space feels different. Conversations slow down. Eyes are drawn to them without conscious reason. It is not seduction, it is gravity. Physically, this strength can manifest in subtle ways: a steadier gaze, a calmer breath, a posture that seems anchored to the earth. The voice carries a weight that needs no force to command attention. Even the smallest gestures seem intentional. This is because the energy is no longer scattered. Most people live fragmented, with their vitality leaking out in endless distractions, impulses, and habits. The chosen one gathers it. Every act of restraint, every conscious redirection, builds this reservoir until it becomes part of their very presence. And here is the paradox. The stronger this energy becomes, the less it needs to be displayed. It does not seek validation. It does not try to impress. It simply is. Some describe it as a kind of magnetism that pulls the right opportunities, people, and circumstances toward them. Not because they chase, but because their inner field is so strong that the outer world begins to respond in kind. This is why many of the chosen ones are mistaken for lucky, as if what they carry is chance, when in truth, it is the result of a discipline invisible to the casual observer. They are not fueled by exhaustion, but by a quiet, renewable source that cannot be stolen or faked. And once you've felt this current within yourself, even for a moment, you understand why they never go back to the life they left behind. Strength like this does not appear by accident. It is not the simple result of abstaining from sex, nor is it a gift granted to a lucky few. It is the product of discipline, of deliberate practices that shape, direct, and refine the raw force of desire into something higher. The chosen ones know that energy, no matter how pure its source, will turn chaotic if left unmanaged, and so they train. They cultivate rituals that protect the mind, nourish the body, and keep the spirit aligned. The first of these is conscious breathing. When desire rises, the untrained mind reacts. The trained mind breathes. Slow, deep inhalations anchor the body in the present moment. Each exhalation releases the heat, not in suppression but in transformation, sending the current upward, letting it wash through the chest, the throat, the mind. Over time, this simple act becomes a reflex, a shield against impulsive action. The second is meditation. To sit in silence and witness the movements of thought without chasing them is to reclaim the throne of the inner world. Meditation teaches the chosen one that desire is not an order, but a passing wave. They learn to let it rise, crest, and fall, untouched, unbroken. The third is physical transmutation. Energy demands movement. Without it, the body grows tense, restless, and heavy. The chosen ones release it through training, running, lifting, yoga, martial arts, each repetition converting the raw fire of instinct into the steady strength of discipline. The fourth is creative expression. They understand that sexual energy and creative energy share the same root. So they write, paint, compose, build. They pour the current into works that outlive the fleeting satisfaction of release. In their art, the energy finds immortality. The fifth is community. Though the journey is deeply personal, the chosen ones know the power of walking alongside others who understand. They share experiences, speak of challenges without shame, celebrate victories without arrogance. In this shared fire, determination grows stronger. All of these practices are tied to a single thread: intention. Without it, abstinence becomes emptiness. With it, abstinence becomes a forge. And in that forge, the chosen ones are remade. Not weaker without their old habits, but stronger because they have mastered them. To live without sex is, on the surface, a simple decision, a choice to remove one thing from the flow of life. But for the chosen ones, that choice is the doorway to everything else. It is not about rejecting pleasure. It is about discovering a deeper one, the kind that is not bound to the body, not dependent on another, not at the mercy of changing circumstances. It is the quiet joy of self-mastery, the unshakable peace of knowing you are no longer a servant to your impulses. Along this path, they face the storms of the mind, the fire of the body, and the hidden tides of the unconscious. They learn to transmute instead of repress, to breathe instead of break, to create instead of consume. They walk with an energy that cannot be imitated, not because it is loud, but because it is real. The world may not understand them. Some will judge, some will mock, many will simply not see. But the chosen ones do not walk for applause. They walk because they have tasted the freedom that comes when the inner world is stronger than the outer pull. And this freedom leaves a mark. Even without preaching, they become examples, proof that the human spirit can be sovereign over its own desires. They carry a presence that challenges the unspoken belief that happiness must always be hunted, that fulfillment must always be taken from outside. Their legacy is not written in grand monuments or public records. It is etched into the hearts of those who cross their path and feel, even for a moment, that there is another way to live. Perhaps, as you've listened to this journey, you've felt something stir in you. A quiet recognition, a sense that this message was not just for them, but for you. If that is the case, then know this: the path of the chosen one is not reserved for saints or sages. It begins the moment you decide that your energy, your life and your purpose are too precious to be spent carelessly. And from that moment on, everything changes, because when you master your desire, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, you become unstoppable.